Hello, and welcome to the What Were You Thinking, a true crime podcast with your host, Philip Tomaso. Hello, and welcome to what I am calling the pre episode first installment of What Were They Thinking, a true crime podcast. As I'm working to get everything researched up and running, I wanted to get some content out into the world. On this pre episode first installment, I'm going to review some relatively recent bizarre news headlines and a little bit of the stories behind them. This is meant to be more of a fun episode to kick things off, considering the rest of the podcast will focus more on some of the darker and more grittier aspects of true crime. This, what I'm calling Shenanigan headlines, will be something to introduce you to me, to the podcast, and to get things started. And hopefully, I actually, because I had so much fun creating this one, we will do a Shenanigan headlines intermission throughout the seasons. I like to say seasons instead of just first season because I'm hopefully optimistic that we're going to become a very successful true crime podcast. What were they thinking? True crime podcast. And we are on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and we have a website as well. Our main focus for recording the podcast is at Anchor, which is through Spotify, but the podcast itself should be listenable at just about every podcast outlet out there. That's the goal. Anyway, Shenanigan headlines is uh is what we're doing today. Our first pre-episode installment. I'm calling it point five instead of one. Instead of episode one, it's episode point five. Let's kick it off. Let's not waste any more time on the intro. I know that's not why you're here. You're here for the news. So, what I have to begin this four-part segment is a Florida man who impersonated a Disney employee to steal, most notably, an R2D2 droid worth $10,000. But he claimed he was doing this to land himself a security job. Jerry Lamb of Law and Crime on June 30th, 2022, writes a Florida man was arrested this week after he impersonated a Walt Disney World employee to steal several expensive decorative pieces from the property. This included an R2D2 statue with an estimated value of up to $10,000, authorities say. David Emerson Proudfoot was taken into custody on Monday and charged with 3 counts of third degree grand theft and obstruction by false information. According to a probable cause affidavit, deputies with the Orange County Sheriff's Office on May 31st responded to Swan and Dolphin Hotel located at 1200 Epcot Resort Drive after Walt Disney World security called them in reference to a possible grand theft. The man allegedly caught the attention of the hotel security team when they noticed him pushing a large cart away from the Swan Hotel and appearing confused. Upon arriving at the scene, deputies met with security guards who were holding a white male who was wearing a gray t shirt, beige work pants, and a high visibility orange work vest, as well as a Walt Disney World issued name tag with David inscribed on it. The man allegedly identified himself as David E. Rogers and provided a birth date and address. He allegedly said part of his job was to move items from one location to another. Investigators quickly learned that there was no record of a person matching the name, birth date, and address that the man had given. Security on scene also told deputies that there was no record of a David E. Rogers working for Walt Disney World. So, right from the get go, this is looking highly suspicious. And when he was asked to produce identification, the suspect allegedly said his wallet was in his employee locker, naturally. He then led deputies on a meandering excursion around the park as he searched for the locker room. They said that David proceeded to wander through the back areas of the hotel, and at one point, they crossed over to the beach club side of the resort complex. David got lost another time, backtracked, and was finally able to locate a member's locker room, the affidavit stated. Once inside the locker room, he went to a row of lockers in the 800 section and appeared confused and could not remember how to find exactly where his locker was or where he left his things. The suspect attempted to get into one of the lockers several times, but with no success. And when the deputies said they knew the suspect had a wallet in his pocket, the suspect produced the Florida's driver's license in the name of David Emerson Proudfoot. And then he admitted to moving items on the property, including that cherished R2D2 and a game machine, at least according to the affidavit. Deputies transported Emerson back to the Swan Hotel, where he allegedly said, and we use the word allegedly throughout this, we can assume it, but it is stated, where he allegedly said that he actually moved the items to help the park's security system by exposing its weaknesses. Proudfoot allegedly told deputies that he had an application for Walt Disney World security pending and was moving the items to show weaknesses in the security of the resorts. He was hoping to secure a better paying job at Walt Disney World. And that's wonderful. I don't think people do enough to improve not only themselves but to help others step up their game. And David Proudfoot was doing that. Uh, allegedly, he allegedly claimed to have no intent to take the items off the property. However, a search warrant executed on Proudfoot's residence allegedly revealed thousands of dollars worth of items that he had stolen from the park in recent months. This included multiple light fixtures. This included multiple light fixtures that had been ripped from bathrooms and were estimated to be worth $1,000 each. Doesn't indicate how many bathroom light fixtures were ripped from the walls, but 1,000 each. And he had a wooden towel cabinet for an estimated 4,000, as well as a gold necklace worth over 700, among other things. Now, I have been to Disney and I have been in the bathrooms and marveled at the light fixtures in those bathrooms. They are magical. They are magical. So I can understand Proudfoot's um, interest in wanting a collection of bathroom light fixtures, and I applaud his taking the initiative to help Disney improve their security measures. Currently, Proudfoot is being held at Orange County Jail on just under $7,000 bond. That's what the jail records show, anyway. And I wish Proudfoot and Walt Disney World all the best of luck as they move forward with this endeavor. And maybe one day we'll see Proudfoot heading Walt Disney World security. It's unlikely, but stranger things have happened. And speaking of stranger things happening, on October 25th in 2022, there's an article, and this is the actual headline by James D. Walsh of The Intelligencer. He's a staff writer there. He writes for his headline, "The Bees of Wrath, Rory Woods, knew foreclosure all too well, and when her friend was evicted, she rushed over with a venomous posse." Gripping. Right there, I want to know, what did Rory Woods do and who was her posse, even though it's in the headline. I was befuddled. Befuddled. And Walsh writes, the overnight chill continued into a recent morning in Longmeadow, Massachusetts, when sheriff's deputies arrived at 49 Memory Lane. It would have been a perfect fall day, but for the unpleasant business at hand. The eviction of Alton King Jr., a 79-year-old retiree who had lived at the address for decades. He'd spent the past few years fighting foreclosures And in a last ditch effort to save his sprawling home, he was at the courthouse that morning to ask a judge for a stay. The battle had garnered the attention of local activists devoted to fighting unlawful foreclosures, and a handful of them were outside at his house to protest. The deputies were waiting for King to return from the courthouse when a blue SUV with a landscaping trailer peeled into the driveway. You can picture this. I can picture this. Big house, blue SUV with a trailer ripping into the driveway or peeling, as Walsh indicated, peeling into the driveway. Rory Woods stepped out of the SUV from behind the wheel and went to the rear of the trailer, which was carrying a half dozen wooden boxes. Then, with a pair of reading glasses draped around the collar of her purple fleece, she began to shake the boxes because the temperature in the low 50s was not conducive to the honeybees she had inside those boxes. So she was coaxing them out by shaking the boxes. A deputy, realizing what she was about to unleash, tried to stop her, but um, bees stung him in the face, forcing him to retreat. The maneuver bought Woods enough time to pull on a beekeeper suit with a vented hood that covered her face and roll one of the hives off the trailer and up to the entryway of King's house. Three more officers marched forward to stop her. They marched forward, but they too were stung by the cloud of bees and fell back. Nearly 30 minutes later, one officer managed to handcuff her as the protesters were cheering. Like, we're with you, Rory, we're with you. At least that's what they said was heard being called out. And she yelled back to one of the protesters, asking them to take care of Zeke. That was her Chihuahua Basin mix, who she had brought with her to the event. The dog was sitting in her blue SUV while the chaos unfolded. And as the officer was leading Woods to his cruiser, he said to her, several officers were allergic to bees. And she said, "Oh, you're allergic? Good." Not very, not very pleasant. After Woods, who's 55 years old, was charged with 4 counts of assault and battery by means of a dangerous weapon. That weapon, of course, being the bees. She was also charged with 3 counts of assault by means of a dangerous weapon. Again, the bees and disorderly conduct. She was heralded as a folk hero. Yeah, folk hero. Songs are going to be written about Rory. Um, so she's got that to look forward to. She said, this is not about a few sheriffs getting a few honeybee stings. This was during an interview. It's about predatory lending, which is thriving in Massachusetts and beyond. I did do some look into this, and it is a kind of a convoluted legal situation for people. I'm not going to deny that. However, Robert Hoffman of the sheriff's department in a press release said never in all of his years of leading the Hampton County Sheriff's Civil Process Division has he seen something like this. And he's thankful no one died because of the uh, bee stings and allergic reactions to the bee stings. He said, I hope that these out of county protesters will reconsider using extreme measures in the future because they will be charged and they will be prosecuted. Woods, on the advice of her attorney, would not speak about what happened at King's home. She did, however, assure the reporter, Walsh, that very few people experience severe allergic reactions from honeybee venom. She pointed out, this is her pointing this out, that one study suggested that anywhere from 0.3% to 8.9% of the population were impacted with allergic reactions from honeybee stings. I do not know if that is in fact true or not. It's her statistic. Those of us in this fight she said, have been cast as deadbeats, and we are anything but. She said she's been cast as a litigious and frivolous person because of the number of cases filed in courts. And in fact, she thinks that's just her opponent's frustrating way of trying to say, why hasn't she died yet? I do not believe for a second that her opponents are pondering the thoughts about why Rory is still alive. And that seems extremely ill will intentioned towards someone for a eviction situation. However, I do find the entire situation extremely bizarre, and I think it's important to point out we're not talking about missing a mortgage payment or two and the sheriff showing up to evict you from your property, and we're not talking about a single home. Well, in Alton's case, it may be a single home property, but we're talking about a value. I believe his property is valued at $1 million or over $1 million. And Rory had multiple properties with legal issues that she fought and continued to fight. Um, I it's kind of a bizarre. I'm gonna have to look into Massachusetts because I don't know what's going on over there. But it's not Alton 79. He's lived there for decades. He's being evicted. It's not from missing one or two mortgage payments and then being evicted. There's a lot more riding on that story. Which will be, maybe we'll look into that in a future episode. But from there, let's move forward to also, I believe this was in the fall of 2022. Maybe you heard about it. Amelia Lucas from CNBC is writing about Beyond Meat. Executive Doug Ramsey leaves company after arrest for allegedly for allegedly biting man's nose and punching him while he was inside his Subaru. She says that Beyond Meat Chief Operating Officer Doug Ramsey, who has been suspended following an arrest for assault, has left the company. Ramsey left the company effective on Friday, weeks after he was arrested for allegedly biting a man's nose following a college football game in Arkansas. The company said in a regulatory filing. Now, Beyond Meat, if you're not familiar with this, is a vegan alternative to meat. It's a plant-based substance. I believe Burger King incorporates it in a Whopper. I think you can get a Beyond Meat Whopper from Burger King. Um, so the irony is thick in this story. It's thick. The company had originally suspended Ramsey after the arrest became public last month, and the next court date at the time was in November, November 14th, 2022. CNBC did reach out to Ramsey for comment, but they did not receive a reply. The announcement came as Beyond Meat, whose sales and share price have been struggling, and unveiled broad layoffs and the departure of other top executives. In September, Ramsey had been charged with making terroristic threats and third-degree battery after allegedly assaulting a driver in a parking garage near Razorback Stadium in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Police said Ramsey punched through the back windshield of a Subaru after it hit the front tire of Ramsey's car, according to a police report. And I think it's important to note they did not indicate in the article who won the game and who Ramsey was in fact rooting for, which may be contributing factors in this matter. But Ramsey allegedly punched the Subaru driver and bit his nose. It's not funny. I shouldn't be laughing. He punched the Subaru driver and bit his nose, ripping the flesh off the tip of the nose. The report indicated the victim and a witness also claimed Ramsey told the Subaru driver he would kill him. Pretty extreme. My guess, Ramsey's team did not cover the spread, which could initially cause someone to behave erratically. And then just the fact that, is he allowed to eat meat? being with Beyond Meat? So at the game, was there anything for him to have to munch on for each quarter, or was he having broccoli, which is good. Broccoli's good. Ramsey joined Beyond Meat in December of the previous year. Spent 3 decades at Tyson Foods before that, where he oversaw its poultry and McDonald's business. Company said in the filing that Jonathan Nelson, its senior vice president of manufacturing operations, would permanently oversee Beyond's operation activities, and he took over Ramsey's role in an interim basis back in November. Beyond Meat did not immediately return a request for any comments. So I'm not sure where that leaves Beyond Meat or Ramsey at this point. That might be interesting to continue to follow. And speaking of interesting, this one, this one I heard about it. It caught my attention. February 9th, 2023. A husband caught cheating drove drunk legally. You heard me right. He drove drunk legally to escape angry wife. So you know what? Let's just keep going. We'll keep going. Daniela Segura of the Sacramento Bee says that a husband caught cheating on his wife drove drunk legally to escape his angry wife and lover. This is what a California jury actually found. The 60-year-old man was caught driving with a blood alcohol content, a BAC, of 0.11. This is according to the county district attorney's office on February 4th of this year, of this month. They said this on a Facebook post. Peculiar. And in California, like I believe most states, it's illegal to drive with a BAC, a blood alcohol content, higher than 0.08. 0.08, and he was at 0.11. So he was well above the legal limit for operating a motor vehicle. However, as I keep saying, uh, he made the case that it was legal. So after a 4-day trial, a jury found he was not guilty of driving a motor vehicle under the influence of alcohol and not guilty of driving a motor vehicle with a blood alcohol content 0.08 or greater. This is according to the district attorney. The defense argued that the man's driving was legally justified. After the man's wife caught him cheating, his driving was necessary to allow him to escape two angry women. That's according to testimony presented uh, at the trial, during the trial. The prosecution argued that the law of necessity should not and has never been used in a situation like this, but the judge allowed the argument to be heard, the district attorney indicated. And it's California. So if it was Florida, California, you kind of expect the bizarre legal battles to unfold, setting bizarre precedent. But California, you almost just go, yeah, yeah, it's California. I understand. So, under a necessity defense, though, the district attorney explained the defendant must prove a number of conditions, including number one, he acted in an emergency to prevent a significant bodily harm or evil to himself or someone else, and that others would have deemed it necessary as well. So that's number one. He also must prove number two that there was no adequate legal alternative and that his driving with a blood alcohol content greater than 0.08 did not create a greater danger than the one he avoided. So the danger of driving at 0.11 BAC was not greater than what waited for him at home. You know what I'm saying? So the defendant had to prove also number three, that he did not substantially contribute to the emergency. Now, in my opinion, and I do not have a judge's um, or a lawyer's background or education, but I feel like number 3 did not get proved. I feel that this man may have, considering the month of February, February 14th right around the corner, and this is February 9th, February 14th, of course, being Valentine's Day. This man was having an extramarital affair. His wife got home early. She found him in their bed. No, actually, I believe it was in a spare room. In the spare room, oh, look at the man was showing some respect for his wife. She found him in a spare room with this other woman, and they're irate. They become irate. They're going to go after him. He takes off, gets in his car. He's drunk, 0.11 blood alcohol content, and he drives himself to safety. I feel he substantially contributed to this emergency before the fact. That's my opinion. However, judge and jury did not agree with my ruling, and they went their own way in California, and they found this man not guilty, not guilty. So I don't know. Kudos? Do you say kudos for something like that? That is, to me, that's the most bizarre. Anyway, I hope, I hope you have enjoyed this pre-episode first installment Shenanigan headlines. And I promise you, this is just a fun one, and we will do a fun one like this periodically throughout the year. The remaining episodes of the true crime podcast, What Were They Thinking, will focus more on the dark and the gritty uh, aspects of true crime. So we're going to move forward next week. I'm hoping the first episode will be out next week where we talk about not Eric Roberts. I'm sorry, Eric Smith. Big mistake there. Eric Smith. And if you don't know anything about Eric Smith, please do not research it. I'm going to tell you all about it next week. Thank you for listening in and have a wonderful day.